Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the keynote session when electrification meets flexibility. All experts agree that the way forward is built on sustainability with fleet electrification and flexibility in mobility. The question, of course, is how to balance both in the interest of tomorrow's fleet and mobility management expectations, and also in your interest. The answer will hopefully be given in this keynote discussion with three top executives of today's international leasing and business mobility companies. They will share their vision on the future of a sustainable and flexible ecosystem that is beneficial for all corporate stakeholders. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure to introduce to you today Tex Gunning, Chief Executive Officer of LeasePlan, Konstantin Sixt, Member of the Managing Board and Chief Sales Officer at Sixt, and finally Bart Beckers, Chief Commercial Officer of Arval. Gentlemen, welcome. Welcome to the Fleet Europe Summit 2020. It's really great that you have been able to find some time in your busy schedules. And of course, it's again time to meet. The first question that I have is a question for each of you. And I would like to start with Tex. Tex, can you briefly, in 1 minute, describe what LeasePlan is about?
Thank you for having us here. Yeah, LeasePlan is about delivering, let's say, cars hopefully with the best service at the most competitive cost to many people. And of course, to many people mean we're moving all the way, of course, from not only having corporate customers, but increasingly, of course, we have private lease customers and small and medium enterprise customers. So it is about delivering car as a service as best as we can.
Okay, perfect. Konstantin, probably almost everyone knows Sixt, but briefly, can you say what Sixt is about, please?
Sixt is about delivering the first-in-class mobility services in 120 countries worldwide for perfect price value.
Great. And finally, Bart, also for you, the same question. What can you tell us about Arval in brief?
Well, Arval is a full-service leasing company in the first place, moving more and more in terms of mobility beyond the car. And that's what our strategic plan is all about. And always there to try and help clients to find better solutions in their sustainable mobility strategies.
Okay, great. Gentlemen, it seems that you are all betting on different strategies to conquer future fleet and mobility users. Tex, if I remember well, during our previous Global Fleet Conference in June, you were in the executive leasing debate rather reluctant to the mobility as a service bus. And you emphasized LeasePlan's vision on car as a service, like you did in the introduction, and on fleet electrification. And Konstantin, Sixt has recently sold its car leasing business and fleet management consultancy business to go for 100% flexible mobility. Tex, can you tell us why Konstantin is wrong?
No, I think Konstantin is absolutely right to get out of the leasing market because that's a very different trick. It's a very different business. Sixt, of course, is very good in rentals. I love Sixt, by the way. I always rent from Sixt as well if I'm on an airport. And that's what they should do. But the car as a service market is a very different market than the rental market. Although you can give it a new name, rental market, mobility as a service, but ultimately renting a car is a very different industry, very different business, very different, let's say, business KPIs, how to manage that. And we focus not on rental. We can't do it. We're not good at it. We leave it to Sixt. We're very good at it. And we focus on car as a service. Mm-hmm. By the way, I think the big things in the market, and you said it yourself in the introduction, is not so much, I think, mobility as a service at the moment. It's purely the electrification that is happening. That is the big movement that is going to happen in the car market.
Okay, and do you think that fleet electrification, that needs to be done via long-term leasing contracts?
Well, people want a car, right? And people want a car normally for a longer period because that also has to do with the price-value relationship, of course. Yes, you can rent a car if you need a rental car. I have nothing against that. That will happen all the time. Of course, there are companies who will have a flexible fleet as well for certain purposes. But ultimately, what we see is the number of cars on the road goes up every single year for the last God knows how many years. And people want the car to do their shopping, to bring the kids to school, to go to the sporting events, to go on holiday. And if they take a flight, then of course they go to Mr. Sixt and says, can you give me a short-term rental? And I've never heard anybody saying, can you give me mobility as a service, please? They said, can it give me a rental car?
Okay, that's quite clear. Konstantin, coming to you. People are not asking for mobility as a service.
Well, first of all, Tex, thank you very much. I think you do a very smart decision by renting cars from Sixt. You made clearly my day. Unfortunately, you say you only rent them at the airport, so this is why I haven't seen you recently. I think the last weeks at our counters. Huh? So I also completely I'm in line with what Tex said about core competencies of a leasing company and of a rent-a-car companies, which are obviously very different. Even though I believe that just because things are different, you cannot do two different things at the same time. But on the other side, I think you asked if we did a right decision or the wrong decision by selling our leasing company. You know, at the end of the day, you always know that afterwards if something is wrong or right. So we don't know that yet, but at the end of the day, but in Germany, there's a saying, you cannot dance on all weddings. And we decided to dance on one very large wedding, which is the mobility space of rent-a-car. And we want to do that right. And we want to be the best in that field. And we want to be the number one and conquer that market.
Bart, Konstantin has just mentioned that we can't dance on all weddings. It seems that with Arval Beyond, that you are going to dance on all weddings. Do you think, because with Arval Beyond, you bring together, let's say, car leasing, electrification, mobility as a service, and connectivity. Do you think that you are the third dog in the known proverb where two dogs fight over one bone, that you are the unsuspected dog who's running away with it?
You're making some very nice comparisons there, Stephen, but let me start by confirming to Konstantin as well that I'm one of his most loyal drivers, probably. When I go abroad, specifically in Spain, I usually rent a car from Sixt and I'm always very happy with the service. Huh? Now, coming back to the question, Arval Beyond is indeed about taking ourselves, and specifically also in the interest of our clients, beyond the company car. I personally don't think that electrification is contradictory or is the opposite in terms of strategy with mobility as a service, if we want to use that buzzword for 1 second. I think the key to make it possible to indeed be involved in the chain across various parts is to partner. You don't need to do everything yourself as a full service leasing company. Speaking for Arval, we try to capitalize as much as possible where we don't consider things to be our core competence on strategic partners. And in this example, for instance, we work a lot with Sixt because they are indeed a short-term rental company, very focused on their own core business, as we are focused on full service leasing. But the one doesn't stop the other. And I would say more and more of our corporate clients, and not only corporate clients, it goes for retail as well, by the way, but more and more corporate clients are asking us to help them bringing in seamless solutions that span the various ways of being able to go from A to B, of which the corporate company car is, of course, our first and foremost asset that we can bring into the equation. but where partnerships such as cooperating with Konstantin is very much part of the game. And that's what clients expect going forward. And of course, as Tex was already pointing out, what at this moment in time for a company like Arval is also extremely important is to help our corporate clients in the first place on the energy transition strategy that they have. And COVID-19 was a bit uncertainty in that respect, but very soon after the lockdowns, it was really confirmed by most of our corporate clients that they want to even accelerate in terms of energy transition and accelerating to use those new energies for the right reason, but at the same time also asking us solutions in case assets would not be used extensively in terms of corporate assets and corporate vehicles. What can we do to help them with alternative transportation? And that's where we believe we can indeed be a winner by bringing it together well, but by partnering in the first place.
Okay, really good. Tex Gunning, LeasePlan, do you anticipate a shift in the offering that we see on the market, the contract duration and the use of ground transportation and mobility solutions in the new normal?
Well, it all depends from what perspective you look at. If you take the core of the core of the core, as we always say in business, the core stays the same. People want cars and they want their cars for the normal transport. That on top of that, you have flexible arrangement with customers. Yes, you have. We all have that. We all have rental cars in our fleet that we use in cooperation. In some countries, stronger cooperation, other countries, less cooperation, in order to get flexibility for our customers. But the core of our business continue to be long-term, because that's the best, or long-term, let's say 3-4 year contracts, because that's still the best value proposition for company cars, is the best value proposition for private lease. And for those who don't want a car permanently, particularly who live in inner cities, yes, of course, there will be other solutions. There will be either people who start car sharing platforms, or they start other platforms. And we're more than happy for other people to do that. They still have to buy cars, so that's good for the OEMs as well. But as yet, we will not venture into that as LeasePlan. We're not a venture capitalist company that starts sponsoring startups. Let the startups do what they do. At the moment, I haven't seen anyone yet being really profitable with that. So we stick to the core. And if indeed there will be a massive, let's say, proposition ultimately in inner cities, where people have car sharing that is profitable, we'll see when it's there. We'll cross that bridge when it's there.
Okay. Konstantin, it seems that with the different solutions around flexibility that you are launching with Sixt, that you are playing the game of the highest possible utilization of the vehicles that you have in your fleet. So you have the different solutions. Is that the only way to become, let's say, a good mobility provider that also is profitable?
Well, I think I also have to underline what Tex has said, that there is obviously many companies and endeavors, either by startups or by large OEM manufacturers, whatever kind of businesses. But at the end of the day, what counts is to be profitable. And we believe that there is different ways, obviously, to run a profitable business. And the target of our company is not to come up with new products for the, let's say, for the show or for the PR, but we really want to build products to be to build a sustainable business model. And by our flexible long-term products, at the end of the day, a car rental company for the last 50 years has offered long-term rents, which is nothing new. In today's world, they're called mostly car subscriptions. And I believe that they have a very bright future. Why? Because I think B2C and B2B customers realize that the most expensive asset that they ever will buy in the next 9 to 10 years is the house and the car. And if you think about how many percent of a day your car is only utilized, and multiply that by the capital cost of the car, I think many corporates and B2C customers ask themselves, is that the right way to go or not? And if you would offer to all of these customers a solution where they would only pay for the use and not pay for the ownership, I think it would underline how huge the value proposition can be.
Okay, good. Konstantin, I continue with you. LeasePlan is betting on electrification, and by 2030, they say that they are going to electrify their entire fleet. Arval has just mentioned in their new strategy that by 2025 they will have 500,000, 500,000 electrified vehicles on the road. Do you think that this is too ambitious, or is this realistic? And what is the strategy of Sixt with regard to electrification?
I think it's a fantastic strategy of Arval and LeasePlan, since we are on our side also very big fans of electrification. And I think without such fantastic players out of your industry, there is no path to electrification. So I find it very great that the large leasing companies in Europe push in that direction, because without them it would not be possible. Because at the end of the day, if you want to reach a high electrification share in the European fleet, you have to do that with corporate fleet. Otherwise, if you don't persuade corporates to go electric, there is no way that anyone meets the targets of the European Commission. So I think, first of all, that's great. But Sixt also does play its part. We have already 1/3 of our car sharing fleet is fully electric in a country not very far from you, which is also orange. In the Netherlands, we have 100% electric fleet in our car sharing fleet. So that just shows how big fans we are of electrification. On the other side, we have to say that the typical use case of a rent-a-car, either in the vacation or for a business trip, which is driving many kilometers, several hundred kilometers a day on a car, currently still causes challenges on the range side. And I think in the car rental space, you will still see a big and share of both thermal and electric fleet for the future, as long as the range capability will be like that.
Okay. Tex, how far are you already today with electrification of your LeasePlan fleet?
Well, I think we could go even faster than where we are today. So I think the problem that is at the moment stopping everybody is range, but also particularly charging infrastructure. I live in Amsterdam, and the charging infrastructure here is appalling. It's very difficult to find a charging station. People park their cars there for whole holidays, even if they take a flight. So I think we should be able to get there by 2030, all of us. You see that also with the supply, of course, of cars that are coming in. There's, I think, 300 new EV cars expected over the next, 24 months. So we should get there, but the infrastructure has to follow. The governments have to support this. They can't yo-yo all the time with subsidies back and forth. It is very important that they support this thing and that it comes through.
Okay. Bart, in your opinion, what is missing from the fleet customer and the fleet industry side to really go into that sustainable mobility ecosystem that we have or that we want?
I wouldn't say that there's anything missing other than what Tex just mentioned. So the range, of course, is something that the manufacturers are working on progressively better. So we'll get there in the coming generation. Infrastructure, as Tex already mentioned, that to me is quite important. And what we can do, I think, as an industry is to make sure that we open all the doors that we can to influence governments locally, even cities where necessary, to really invest and support that sort of take up to come. And beyond that, I would say we have to make sure as an industry that we connect well together because flexibility is key, and we shouldn't always assume indeed that we can always use the same car. It will be often not necessary even, and in many cases in the last couple of years, an electric vehicle, a full electric vehicle, very often qualifies, not maybe for 100% of the cases, but in 80-90% of the normal trips, I would say on a daily basis, it does qualify. So it is good that indeed, Konstantin is already suggesting he's investing as well, because some of those clients want this anyway, even when they go for a short-term rental. And in some cases, it is indeed very good to have a short-term rental company like Konstantin's available to fill up the needs, if you want, with an alternative vehicle in case this one time it doesn't work with an electric vehicle. So I think we're all in the same boat, trying to go as fast as possible. And I think as an industry, we can do a lot, specifically starting with corporate clients.
Okay, thank you. Gentlemen, unfortunately, we have to close this keynote panel. May our future and yours be electrified and flexible.